Okay, today we're in section 3.1, parallel lines and transversals. All right, so the first thing we need to know are some terms. I tried to make them as concise as possible. Concise meaning not wordy, but only the words that are really going to be important for you to know. Okay, so we have parallel lines. That's a really important part of the lesson. You have to understand that parallel lines never intersect. And parallel lines are defined by, let's see here, I need my pen. Parallel lines are defined by arrows. Need to make it smaller. That look like this on the line. Okay? So because of these arrows, I know that those two lines are parallel, right? It's kind of messy. It's hard to do on the iPad. But those arrows are what you're going to look for on your homework quiz test. But I'll just go ahead and tell you they're going to be parallel. Because without parallel lines, I can't use any of my angle rules that I'm teaching you today. All right? So they will be parallel. And a transversal is a line that intersects two parallel lines. So that's what we see on the orange line. It's intersecting, and when you think of intersection, what do you think of? When you think of an intersection, what comes to mind? Like real life? Road, stoplight, where roads cross each other. So you could even view these lines as roads crossing each other. An intersection is a point where two lines cross. Okay? So we see now that the transversal has formed 2 points of intersection. You guys with me so far? Okay, 2 points of intersection, transversal. So when that happens, it forms all of these angles. I'm just going to randomly number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. If that line, if the orange line wasn't there, would those angles be there? Would they exist at all?
No.
No. So otherwise, it's just two parallel lines. But as soon as a transversal cuts the parallel lines, all of a sudden now, all of these angles are formed. So what do we know about these angles and their relationships? That's what I'm going to teach you today. Okay, how to find angle measures because of their relationships. And again, all of these rules can be applied because the lines are parallel. All right, and here's the first rule that's very important. If a parallel line is cut by a transversal, that's what we just said, transversal cross through them, we get corresponding congruent angles. What does it mean for angles to be congruent? That they're equal, okay? Does anybody remember from chapter 2 what corresponding means? Does anybody remember what corresponding means? Remember we were talking about we have to pick corresponding points on the figures. They had to be where? In the same spot, right? The same location. So let's look at both points of intersection. Let's look at angle 1. Which angle on the other intersecting point is in the same location as angle 1? Which angle? Y'all just tell me.
5.
Angle 5. So I would say that angles, and it's important to write this down, angles 1 and 5 are corresponding, okay? So we're going to pick out all 4 pairs. What about angle 2? Which angle on the other intersecting point is in the same location as angle 2? 6. 2 and 6. So let's go ahead and write that down. Angle 2 and 6. You guys are doing great so far. All right, now match up your other 2 pairs of corresponding points. All right, so give me another pair.
3 and 7.
3 and 7.
4 and 8.
And 4 and 8. All right, so here's what my rule says. When a transversal cuts parallel lines, exactly what happened here, my corresponding angles are congruent. So if angle 1, let's give it a value. If angle 1 was 78 degrees, that means that angle 5 is also 78 degrees, okay? And then it matches up, all the rest of them match up. And throughout the rest of the lesson, we're actually going to fill in a whole one of these in just a minute. All right, but do you understand the basics Any questions so far? Any questions so far? All right, corresponding angles, very big part of today's lesson. Understanding same location, they're going to have the same value. So that's what we see here. And this is 2 homework problems on your homework tonight is telling me what the measure of angle 1 and 2 is. All right, so again, this symbol in front of angle 1 and angle 2, that's the angle symbol. You need to use symbols whenever you're making these comparisons. It's really important. Okay, so what information here do you think is pretty important to know? Hint, it's in red. Okay, the 110 degrees. So you're always going to be given some type of an angle measure as your baseline or your basis or your starting point. Okay, so whatever angle measure is given to you, that's always your starting point. All right, so go ahead and write this down in your notes. Okay, so everybody's taking good notes. I want to give you a chance to write it down before we explain how we're going to find the measures of angles 1 and 2. All right, so we're going to sidetrack here for just a second. What did I just draw? What is that?
A line.
That's a line. Everybody agree that's a straight line? Any disputes? Okay, now, what is... All right, that's not quite as straight. What did I just write there? Okay, 2 angles. But do you agree that both of these angles sit on the straight line? Everybody agree? Okay, so I call these 2 angles supplementary angles. Okay, 2 angles that lie on the same line and share a common point. All right, now there's something that we know to be true about the measure of a straight line. Does anybody know what the degree measure of a straight line is? Just tell me. 180 degrees. So logically speaking, if a straight line measures 180, that means that angles 1 and 2 have to add up to 180. With me? Okay. So let's say the measure of angle 2 is 100 degrees. What would the measure of angle 1 have to be? 80 degrees, because it has to add up to 180. That's what we call supplementary angles. Okay, so I'm going to erase this. All right, now let's go over here to this grid. Angles 1 and 2, this is what it's going to look like on your homework, but you need to understand, and you could turn your head sideways if you want, you know, or whatever you need to do, but that angles 1 and 2 are supplementary because they share this common line. They both sit on this common line. And we just said that a line measures how many degrees? 180. It shares this common point, so these 2 angles are supplementary. It's very important for you to be able to recognize what angles are supplementary. Okay? They share a common side. They sit on the same line, okay, just like this, and they share a common point. All right? But before I can find 1 and 2, okay, I have to find one of the measures, and that's where the 110 degrees comes into play. All right? 110 degrees on this intersection is in what section? What section is this? Is it top right, top left, bottom right, bottom, what is it? It's in the bottom left section. Does everybody see that? So, which angle on the other intersecting points is in the same location? Angle 1, it's in the bottom left. They're both in the bottom left, okay? So because of that, they are corresponding angles and they are the same measure. So I would say that angle 1 is 110 degrees, all right? Angle 1 is 110 degrees. Because, and on your homework it says to explain, you are going to say corresponding, okay, corresponding to a 110 degree angle, okay? All right, that's your reason. It's corresponding, all right? Now angle 2. Angle 2. All right. What did we just say these angles were? What's their relationship? They are, starts with an S, say it. They're supplementary. Okay, so if angle 1 is 110 degrees and they lie on a straight line and they share a common point, which they do, they must add up to 180, which means that angle 2 has to be 70. And here's your why. It's supplementary, and you can abbreviate SUPP, to angle 1. And that's your why. It's supplementary to angle 1. Angles 1 and 2 are supplementary. It's just as important, if not more important, that you know the why. If you understand the why, you'll get these right every time. It's not a matter of being able to do the math. It's recognizing the relationships. All right, so we're through 2 different kinds of angles, supplementary and corresponding. Okay, any questions? Supplementary and corresponding? All right, let's go to the next example. We have another angle relationship, vertical angles. Vertical angles are opposite each other, share the same point, and they are the same measure. So now I'm not subtracting anything from 180. I'm saying vertical angles are the exact same measure. So if they share a common point and they're completely opposite each other, not lying on the same line, but opposite, then they're actually going to be the same measure. All right, so go ahead and write this down. You don't have to write down the use the figure part. Just write down vertical angles and then copy down the image that you see up here on the screen. Okay, so we see a given angle measure, 75 degrees. Okay, 75 degrees. So again, the given angle measure is my starting point. All right, what this example wants us to look at is the angle measure that is actually opposite the given angle measure. All right, so it's completely opposite the given angle measure. It shares a common point. So this middle point means it shares the common point and it's opposite. And here's my rule. Vertical angles are equivalent in measure. So that means that angle 1 is also 75 degrees. Okay, angle 1 is also 75 degrees. Because, and here's my why, it's vertical to 75 degrees. Okay? It's vertical. All right, so now let's look at angle 2. I want you to try to find the measure of angle 2 and tell me why. This is from example 1. Robbie?
105 degrees, and because it is on the same line as 1 which is 75 degrees, and
Yep.
it has to equal 180, so just subtract it.
Now, do you remember that term that we used last slide? Ashley, do you remember that term that started with an S? What was it? Supplementary. Very good, Jakari. So 105 degrees, exactly like Robbie just said, is supplementary to angle 1. Okay? So that's the why. All right? So now let's find angle 3. All right? Angle 3 now. Go ahead and find angle 3. Caleb, you think you have it? Vertical to which one? Yes. Okay, so he said 105 because it's vertical to 2. That's exactly right. Is that the only reason?
No.
Can anybody see another reason why it would be 105 degrees, Tati?
Second answer is 75 degrees.
Very good. Or to angle 1. Okay, do you see that? It's supplementary to angle 1, shares that common side, or it's supplementary to 75 because it shares the common side and it's vertical. You see the connection? All right. Oh man, I don't know any of the angle measures
Same thing.
on the second intersecting point. So which type of angle relationship says same location, same angle measure? What was that term that I learned in the first slide? It started with a C. Corresponding. So I can look now. I know all of the angle measures in the first set. Okay? So now I can match them up. Which angle is in the same exact location as 75 degrees? 6. So I can say that angle 6 is 75 degrees because it corresponds. It's corresponding. with the 75-degree angle measure. And by the way, 1, 2, 3, never mind. Okay, with 75 degrees. All right. Now I want you to try to find the measure of angle 5. The measure of angle 5. Let's do angle 5 next. Let's do angle 5 next. Does everybody have these written down? Because I'm about to have to clear them so I have more room to write. Okay. Okay, so angle 5. Does anyone want to give this one a shot? Angle 5, someone new? Milani?
105.
Okay, so she said 105 degrees, and what's your Y?
Because it's corresponding with angle 2.
Okay, so it corresponds, and we can abbreviate to angle 2. That's exactly right. Can anybody think of another reason that angle 5 is 105 degrees? Okay, anybody think of another one? Only Caleb? Caleb, why? Okay, it is, but we technically don't know angle 7 yet. It's also supplementary to 6. Okay, well, going along those lines, what is the measure of angle 7? Don't say it yet. Go ahead and write it down and write your Y. What is the measure of angle 7? And hopefully you're starting to see a pattern here that there's not just one Y. Okay, that all of these angle relationships actually are connected together. Okay, so we could guess at it. I mean, given the other angle measures, it's probably going to be one of two angle measures, 75 or 105, but which one is it and why? Which one is it and why, Nolan? Okay, 7 corresponds with 3, and what was the measure of angle 3? So that means that angle 7 is 105 degrees because it corresponds with angle 3, or also because it's vertical to angle 5. And vertical angles are congruent, and also because it's supplementary. So Tati's got that one nailed down, right? Supplementary to 6. All right, last one. Find the measure of angle 4. Angle 4. All right, so really, guys, it's all about just recognizing those angle relationships. All right, you have the answer written down for angle 4. Kendall?
75 degrees corresponding to angle 1.
Okay, 75 degrees, and it corresponds with 1. Any other reasons? Y'all just tell me. Okay, 4 corresponds. Oh, no, hold on. Yeah, corresponds with 1. What is it? Vertical to 6, supplementary to 5 or 7. Okay, so guys, it all ties together. All right, supplementary adds up to 180, vertical is congruent, and corresponding is congruent. All right, almost done, guys. Interior and exterior angles. So now we're still looking at a transversal that's cutting 2 parallel lines, okay? We've looked at how these angles are corresponding, how they are supplementary, how they're vertical, but now we're going to categorize them in a different type of category. And I want you to view these categories as like being parallel, okay? So the best way I can describe that is raise your hand if you're a girl. If you're a girl, okay? Right, and keep your hands up, girls. Keep your hands up if you are also in the 8th grade. Okay, are you both? Right, girls and in the 8th grade. Boys, are you both boys in the 8th grade? So you can have more than one definition, if you will. Correct? Okay, so angles can be supplementary, okay? At the same time, I can look at those same angles and they can be interior angles or exterior angles, and I can just look at them a little differently. All right, so the interior angles, I color-coded them. I think you can kind of see that on the slide. My interior angles, I'm going to list them. All right, and they are on the inside of the parallel lines. So we see interior angles on the inside of the parallel lines. All right, and it's angles 3, 4, 5, and 6. Angles 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now my exterior angles are, which angles, guys? List them for me. 1, 2, 7, and 8. Okay? So this is just a matter of recognizing which ones are interior and which ones are exterior. So I can actually apply my rule for the next one. Okay? Alternate interior and exterior angles are congruent. There's that word again. They are congruent. Okay? I misspelled alternate right there. Sorry about that. Spell check did not catch that. What do you think something means when I say alternate? What's alternate mean? What does alternate mean?
Someone messes up that you do.
Yeah, or like opposite, okay, or to switch, So alternate interior, let's look at angle 3 for a second. Just by looking at it, angle 3, would you say that this is greater than 90 or less than 90 degrees? It's less than 90 degrees. And now look at angle 6. Would you agree that it also appears to be less than 90?
Yes.
Okay, so when a transversal cuts parallel lines, the alternate interior angles are going to be equal. All right, so let's list our pairs. Our alternate interior angles are angles 3 and 6. Here's what that means. If angle 3 is 54 degrees, then angle 6 is 54 degrees. Okay? Again, I can figure out angle measures if I understand their alternate interior. What's my other pair of alternate interior angles?
4 and 5.
Okay, 4 and 5. Would you agree that both of those angles appear to be greater than 90 degrees? Slightly greater? 4 and 5? Would you agree? Yeah. Okay. The same rule applies for alternate exterior angles. We can see that angle 1 appears to be greater than or less than 90 degrees. Barely. Greater than. Okay. And the alternate matching exterior angle, 8, also appears to be slightly greater than 90 degrees. So even visually, they match up. So for the alternate exterior, 1 and 8. And what's my other pair of alternate exterior angles?
7 and 2.
Okay, 2 and 7. All right, alternate interior and alternate exterior. Questions, guys? Okay, so we're through the definitions. Okay, so what you need to understand, guys, is when you're identifying angle measures, okay, so let me wrap this up for you real quick, okay? You don't necessarily have to write this down. Angle 2, let's make up an angle measure of 88 degrees. 88 degrees, okay? Now, we've learned that 2 and 4 are what kind of angles? 2 and 4 starts with an S. We're just going to try to wrap it all together. Supplementary, very good. So I could subtract it from what to find angle 4?
180.
180 to find that angle measure. What about 2 and 3? What kind of angles are they? No, you're right. They're vertical, so they're the same measure. You remember that? Okay, so we know that angle 3 would be 88. Which angle, though, is alternate exterior to angle 2? Which angle is alternate exterior, Caleb?
7.
So angle 7 is 88 degrees. Okay? Which angle is vertical to angle 7?
6.
Come on, guys, everybody.
6.
Which one, angle is it? It's 6. So angle 6 is also 88 degrees. Which angle to angle 6 is alternate interior to angle 6?
Angle 3.
Angle 3. And do you also agree that it's vertical to 2? And it's the same, okay? So even alternate interior and exterior angles are now tying together, okay? 3 and 1, we said are what kind of angles? Starts with an S. Supplementary, because they lie in the same line, so I subtract and I get 92 degrees. So that means, what is the alternate exterior angle to 1?
8.
This one is also 92 degrees. And my reason why is it's alternate exterior. All right, guys, so the challenging part about grading your homework tomorrow will be you're all going to have different reasons. You can say alternate interior, alternate exterior, corresponding, vertical, as long as you're comparing it to another specific angle, okay? We can look at that, all right? And then we just fill the rest in. 8 and 5 are vertical, so that's 92 degrees. 5 and 4 are alternate interior, so that's 92 degrees. And are we done? That's all of them, okay? So alternate interior are the same, verticals are the same, supplementary, we can look at it so many different ways. Corresponding, okay? And that's everything you need to know for section 3.1.